the other one, you bastard!
Brought to you by supporters who probably have better taste than this schmuck.
Well, I dunno why I expected anything else. I typically prefer to keep a balance between positivity and negativity on this channel, but you guys apparently want to see me tear shitty toys to shreds. Don't come to me complaining that I'm a negative Nancy after this. You did this to me. This is your doing. ...2021 all around was a pretty shitty year. Outside of the fandom, there were simply too many issues to cover in a single sentence. And I probably couldn't cover them anyway, since I try not to be political since this is a toy review channel. The Transformers franchise concluded its premiere mature series with the worst season yet and announced the delay of the one film that could potentially fix public perception. And sure, we got the best season of Cyberverse by far, but now it's over because they can't stick with a show for more than 3 seasons. Although I really hope that rule applies to War for Cybertron. I don't want that show to continue. Don't f***ing continue. Don't you f***ing dare continue that show, you bastard! When it came to the toys though, it was actually a really good year. Sure, Studio Series 86 was boring as shit and Masterpiece plunged even further into the abyss, but the rest was legitimately fantastic. Kingdom outdid both prior chapters in the trilogy with its consistent level of brilliance. The few Movieverse Studio Series figures we did yet were really creative, and Cyberverse actually had a few really good releases, which is quite the step above their usual level of quality. And you want to talk about third party? Well, if you're a Legends fan, this was the best year we've had so far. As such, finding truly awful toys that released this year was pretty difficult, which is why a good chunk of the figures on this list aren't from this year. Yes, a lot of these were delayed releases from 2020, since if you live in Drongo land, you can get f***ed apparently. Some of these are also fumbles in back collecting, since I'm a lazy f*** who didn't bother doing research on whether some of these would be good or not. I'm an idiot and this is my punishment. That aside, let's finally put 2021 to rest with a celebration of catastrophe. Greetings Cybertronians, I'm DrLockdown, and today's diagnosis pertains to the top 21 worst Transformers of 2021. Of course, as with every top 10 list, housekeeping is required first. This isn't a list of the figures that specifically released this year, but rather what I got within this year. Back collecting is a thing and these lists don't exist to figure out which figures were the most popular. YouTube reviewers don't do that. This is a way of looking back at our own collecting journeys. And if you disagree, please politely f*** off and make your own damn list. This leads into the second point. This hasn't been calculated with a shred of objectivity. This list is entirely subjective, so there ain't no right and wrong answers. Yes, I may have a PhD in taste, but this ain't a video where I definitively catalogue the worst of the year. Obviously, your own list will be 100% different. I'm positive even my choice for the bottom ranking will be on the top of the best figures of the year list for someone, and that's okay. This may all seem bleedingly obvious, but every year it's the same. Comment sections flooded with people getting mad at a list that in no way affects their own personal choices. I am not you, and as such, I will not have the same opinions as you, so f*** off. Actually, come to think of it, those comments do provide good engagement for the algorithm. The worst of 2020 list just so happens to be the second most watched video on the channel. You know what? Fine, go ahead. Harass me till the cows come home. Not like this segment is gonna stop you, nobody watches this shit anyway. This. Let's move on.
Number 21!
Whenever a Legends company releases a Brilliance figure, I always see the same comments. Oh, it's great, but it's too small.
I wish this company would make bigger figures. They should upscale this to Voyager size.
It's always the same, like a broken record. Well, here's why you don't actually want that. Wonky proportions, gimped functionality to fix the parts that would break under the plastic stress at this size, features removed for some bizarre reason, a face that stares into your soul like the abyss. This is not a good figure. I bought it on a whim because we haven't really gotten any truly fantastic larger Windblade toys, and the closest we have gotten has since been untimely ripped from our arms as a sacrifice to the Catgirl deities. Of course, it was never going to fill that void, but it did confirm my suspicions. Third-party Legends just doesn't work when upscaled to such a larger size. When someone designs a figure this small, they do it in a way that works for the scale. Leeway can be given in plenty of areas. It's why I have the running gag of the sign I keep pulling out. On a larger figure, you don't really get that. It's a different design philosophy. Just as you can't force a Masterpiece transformation into a Legends figure, you really can't force a Legends figure into a Voyager size. Admittedly, although this figure is bad, I can't find myself hating her too much. She's not really so bad she's good, but rather so bad she's humorous. That said, I kind of feel vindicated with this release, and for that feeling alone, I feel she deserves a spot. Ah well, I guess you'll have to do until MMC, Fans Hobby, or Planet X take a stab at the character. I don't usually buy based on character affinity, but we are extremely long overdue for a third-party Windblade.
Number 20!
I really wanted to put one of the Tetrajets on the best of 2021 list. I really did. Hashtag weren't going to make it easy for me, though. The two releases we ended up getting weren't exactly the most stellar. The Sparkler Seeker was probably the most cheap feeling of the bunch, plastic-wise, and the deco just didn't cut it in comparison to the previous Netflix outing. I mean, caramel-covered windows? Who the f*** thought that was a good idea? That said, Shattered Glass Starscream was a pretty neat addition. I was at least prepared to put him on the honorable mentions lists, until suddenly, without warning, I discovered he had yellowed to absolute shit. What the f*** happened here? Typically, yellowing happens when you leave it in the sun for a good long while. This fellow has been in a box for most of the year, stored in a dark cupboard. How the f*** did he get like this? Now, I am fully aware this is just a QC issue on my end. Anyone watching this probably won't have this issue, but this is a personal list. I've been fairly lucky in terms of hashtag QC, but I guess that luck finally ran out. I suppose they didn't mix the pigments properly, and it somehow started yellowing despite being in a storage area as dark as a Shadow the Hedgehog fanfiction written by a Chaos Marine. This particular copy pisses me off, and that's why it earns a spot on this list. If this list had even the slightest hint of objectivity, he wouldn't count. But f*** you, I'm cataloging my own experiences. I suppose I'll have to hunt down a second copy at some point, which shouldn't be too hard all things considered, but I really shouldn't have to.
Literally, the day after I finished editing this, more reports of this happening came out on Twitter. It's not just me, Hasbro needs to get this shit in control.
Number 19!
I really like the Earthrise Datsun mold. I'm fully aware of the breakage issues, but I've managed to skirt around those for the most part. Even with Canada Post being especially violent with the Blue Streaks package. Especially with the repro labels, these guys are visually stunning. Then Barricade has to come along and f*** the whole thing up. I really hate it when Hasbro uses chalky paint. It looks awful and chips like a motherfucker. And what happened to the purple of the Siege version? That was like the best part! Barry has gone from one of the coolest looking entries of the line to one of the blandest. With the last two entries, I had reservations about putting them on the list. This was the first entry where it feels wholly justified in my mind. I've got a few filming plans for this in the far future, but once those are done, he's probably going to get sold off. Couch Punter Couch too, although I find myself getting less angry at him because it's a good chance for people to get the mold if they missed out on the Power of the Primes version. Either way, when the Authentics version delivers a more satisfying experience overall, you know they done f***ed it up.
Number 18!
Why did I buy this? No, seriously, why the f*** did I buy this? Stupidity, that's why. With everyone selling off their collections on the Facebook Marketplace whilst under lockdown, I made a few really stupid decisions on pickups. Now admittedly, the mold itself isn't really an issue. Both modes, at least sculpt-wise, are rad. The engineering is also insanely clever, and it's really tempting me to get into Prime figures wholesale. The problem lies in the colors. This is so boring. I seriously have no idea why I bought this. I'm guessing it's because it was a reasonably priced botcon figure and I thought, well, I might as well. The deal wasn't even that great. These two figures cost the same price ultimately. That's honestly sad. Given its rarity, I don't think I'm going to offload it. But he'll definitely serve as a reminder on doing research and getting a feel for a design before buying on a whim. Christ, that's twice now I've been duped by a Prime figure. I know the line is quite good under all this, but I've had really bad luck with it so far.
Number 17!
I feel really stupid about getting this one. I saw it, knew it was bad from the get-go, and still opted to give it a chance. It happens quite a lot, actually. God, I'm a moron. Studio Series 86 Blur is a prime example of my unparalleled idiocy in buying certain figures. Right off the bat, I knew something was up with the first wave of SS86, and I still fell for it hook, line, and sinker. Maybe they give it the same treatment as all the Movieverse Studio Series bots as of late, with really unique and clever transformations? Nope, just bog standard copying of the Time to Return Blur mold, and yet somehow less memorable. What really gets me is the head. This thing looks fugly. I don't know who approved this head design, especially with all the brilliant heads they've been doing, even on awful toys. But Christ, this looks bad. I'd make a why the long face joke, but this figure doesn't even deserve that. The rest of the body can't save it either. It's all around an incredibly boring figure. Matter of fact, I was so bored that this segment was written and filmed in June, and I ended up selling him shortly after, much like Scourge before him. I never took him out of his storage box, save for a few filming comparisons. And I never had any inclination to mess with him. Honestly, if you're not appreciating your toys in any way, you might as well ditch them. They're just dead weight at that point, which is pretty much the feeling I get from this toy. I'm just hoping as a June 2021 version of Dr. Lockdown that the Shattered Glass version is better. Hello there, January 2022 Dr. Lockdown here. The Shattered Glass version is indeed quite alright, although I must admit the Time to Return version still feels more satisfying. I guess that's the world we live in though, accuracy continues to reign supreme. Satisfying engineering, I guess. Whoop-dee ding.
Number 16!
After years and years of hunting, I've finally finished my Legends collection. I now have one of every officially released Hashtag Legends mold, starting from the Legends of Cybertron lineup and covering everything right up to the recent core class figures, minus Hot Rod, who's at present on the way. This means I get to turn to my next targets, tiny turbo changes. I did manage to pick up a few in 2021 to get a head start, which is surprising even for me considering most of these didn't release here. Now, these figures are fairly cheap, and as such it's rather difficult to make a truly bad one. This is what makes Shockwave that extra bit special. The bar was set so low and yet he still falls below it. So the alt mode looks like nothing. Okay, I can accept that. But did they really have to give him no tabs whatsoever? Did they really have to provide no tooling on the bottom of the feet? Admittedly, the robot mode is fine, but at this point it's far too late. Dark of the Moon Shockwave isn't a hard character to do. He basically turns into a nebulous blob anyway, yet somehow they failed even that. God, I hope my collecting experience with these doesn't turn into a disaster. Please don't all be like Shockwave over here.
Number 15!
Honestly, what else is there to say about this figure? It was a lackluster mold from the beginning, and this version somehow makes it even worse. We could have had the best lineup of Seekers we'd ever gotten, and instead Hasbro started from scratch because heaven forbid not being 100% cartoon accurate. Yes, you can rotate the wings forward, but it still looks shit. And yes, the paintwork is actually accurate to the real thing, so it camouflages against the sand dunes and remains hidden from satellites. But newsflash, it's still slapdash as f***. And the mold itself still stinks, as I've gone over in great detail. I don't get why Hashtag have such trouble getting a Seeker mold to work. Consistently, they get it right, and then 2 weeks later they have to start over again and f*** it all up in an instant. It's like a game of Russian roulette, only half the chambers have bullets in them. Can we just get more Tetrajets instead? I know you f***ed up the Shattered Glass version, but that's no reason to stop now. Give us the goods, give us the goods!
Number 14!
When I reviewed Deformation Space Crimson Wings, I made sure to preface my recommendation with one thing. Do not buy him out of spite. Don't purchase him because the official Masterpiece version is as bad as it is. Buy him because you want him for the things he does. This figure right here is the reason why. I bought Corbot Mugger specifically because of my distaste with the official version. Turns out it was a big mistake. Not only is he a pretty bad figure in his own right, he's actually worse than the Earthrise version. Lacking articulation, failure at stability, a clunky transformation, and pretty lackluster materials. Not the worst materials on the planet, but definitely not up to par with what came out in the year of its release. Apparently this is the same company that did the axe for War for Cybertron Optimus Prime, designed by Azim Venkster. I hope he didn't have anything to do with this particular release, because his talents are too good to be associated with this piece of garbage. Either way, there's still a lot of potential for a proper Alicon someday. I'm sure one of the big 3PMP companies will tackle the Alicons to a higher standard, and my money's on X-Transbot since they already did the Quintessons. But until then, this one's an easy skip.
Number 13!
I like G1 toys. They're dated, sure, lacking in articulation and proportional cohesion, but there's something special in the simple joys found within them. That kind of simple fun is nowhere to be seen with Devastator. I'm sorry, I know a bunch of G1 fans are gonna crucify me for this one, but the original Devastator toy is just trash. Yes, I'm fully aware that his flaws are exacerbated by the shoddy quality of the Encore release. Apparently this is supposed to be a swing and a miss for Takara's reissue team. Even ignoring that though, it's a clunky toy. You can tell this is Takara's first attempt at a proper combiner, because it's all over the place. The connections aren't solid, the core bots barely have any play value to them, the transformations aren't satisfying, and the combine mode just looks wrong. It lacks that derpy charm that you get with some of the later Gestalts, ones that relied on the Scramble City system. Yes, I'm fully aware that this was their first attempt at a combiner, but I don't really care. This list is a personal one, cataloguing what I disliked throughout the year, and G1 Devastator, Encore or otherwise, pissed me off to no end.
Number 12!
The problem with completionism is that you're always going to end up with at least one stinker of a figure that you have to get out of obligation. Masterpiece fans do this quite frequently, grabbing mediocre figures just to fill a character spot. Fortunately, I don't have to go that far, but still, this is most certainly that point reached. Revenge of the Fallen may have been a great step forward for Legends engineering, but RC most certainly doesn't follow that trail. I understand that this design is kinda shit to begin with, but it's the same old shit seen with tiny turbo changes, Shockwave. Things don't have a starting and stopping point. There's no clear process to the transformation. Things just happen? I get why the designers did this. They most likely took one look at the design and then phoned in the engineering process. Why would you put effort into something like this anyway? Doesn't change the fact that this is garbage though. I'm sure I'll have to deal with figures like this in the future as I move on to tiny turbo changes and G1 Micromasters, but in the meantime, I'm glad this particular chapter is over.
Number 11!
Look, I know everyone and their mother could figure out this is a bad release just from stock photography alone, but it was a deal with Thundercracker, so I took what I could get. And you know what? Thundercracker is actually quite rad, so no regrets. Regardless, the titanium line is a prime example of what happens when the designers have warped priorities. They were so focused on pushing a premium paint job and a hefty dose of diecast that they completely forgot how to design an actually good figure. The alt mode stinks, but everybody already knows that. Even the wiki dubs it the Nap of Doom. The main problems I have are the transformation and the robot mode. Sliding rails are of course a great idea on a figure that's 70% metal and totally won't break down over time. And what the f are these shoulder supports? They barely hold in place and are the biggest cop-out for a torso swivel type transformation I've ever seen. In robot mode, the problems continue to pile up. The hips have Combiner Wars Motormaster syndrome with no locking points between all the way out and T-pose rigid. The arm pose ability stinks and the head sculpt is extremely non-distinct. This figure doesn't really succeed in anything aside from making me wish Spark Toys was still around. I miss Spark Toys. Shame they were never able to find an audience. Their Grimlock looked rad. Guess the sales weren't there. Wait, what was I talking about again? Yeah, I don't know. Can't have been that important.
Number 10!
This figure's placement did not go as planned. I knew what I was getting into with this figure, and in a similar case to the Quintesson Judge, I didn't care. He wasn't going to be in my collection for long, so I could hammer out a quick script portion for the eventual worst of the year video and call it a day. I went into how cutting it some slack on the parts forming would be dishonest with my personal feelings, because in my eyes, parts forming is genuinely bad. I went into how he was clearly the weak link in the set, and how Fangry gets way too much hate. I discussed how the detail was consistently washed out in this yellow plastic, throwing a big middle finger to the gorgeous matte finish on the original, one of the things I actually praised it for. I finished off that and sold it off to a friend so that he could turn it into a bumble jumper, and I sat back with the satisfaction that at least he'd go to someone who would actually appreciate him properly. This is how things were until about the second last week of the year. See, here's the thing. I actually ordered this set twice. The first time, I had no idea if it would release in Australia or not, so I imported one from Canada. It never showed up though, approximately 3 months and there had been no word, since apparently they didn't offer tracking. So I cut my losses and ordered one locally. 3 months later, 6 months total from the original order, it actually showed up. I'm never going to be rid of this thing. I'm cursed to endure its presence for the rest of my days. I have a feeling even if I sell this off, some twisted will send me another copy as some kind of sick joke. The universe hates me. Initially, this had a pretty low ranking on this list, around the 18th or 17th spot if memory serves me correct. But this pisses me off. Not being able to get rid of this thing, that made it go up a few steps. You Worlds Collide Bumblebee, more so than the Cliff Jumper mold. At least that had the decency to actually look good, and only show up when I needed it. Get out of my life, you pompous ass!
Number 9!
There are 3 figures in Kingdom people often tout as the worst of the line, and for the most part I can't really agree. People consistently criticize Trax's floppy legs and use of a faux chest, but in my eyes is still a pretty solid deluxe. The design is rad, the alt mode is nice, and the transformation isn't hateful by any means. Sure, it's a little excessive with its clear plastic, but it's solid enough that I think it would have been praised had it released in Earthrise. It's just that Kingdom has been of such high quality that he seems awful in comparison. Hell, I'd even go for a loud pedal despite owning the Masterpiece version. People also consistently talk Rhinox, and again, I don't think it's worthy. The beast mode is clean as a whistle, and the engineering is really clever once you get used to it, and the articulation is insane for a figure with this much bulk. Is it perfect? No, it's rather flat on the chest, and I'm not a fan of that, but I'm still glad I picked it up. Scorponok, though, yeah, he can go f*** himself. I applaud the ideas behind his transformation, but they are so severely undercooked. The robot mode is a proportional nightmare, not just inaccurate, but also terrible in its own right. The claws look less like scorpion claws and more like that weird thing from the Little Shop of Horrors. And believe me, I checked to make sure. If there's a real scorpion with these piranha plant-ass claws, please let me know in the comments because I'm losing my mind here. The transformation is a pain in the ass, not out of complexity, but rather out of each step not being fun. And the beast mode, sure, it's fine, but it's not really what people were asking for. Yeah, I get you wanted to make the beast head accurate, but the original wasn't inaccurate to the real animal either. It's just a different type of scorpion, and whilst changing the species worked for Air-Razor, it most certainly did not here. Scorponok isn't just bad in comparison to the stellar line that was Kingdom, he's bad as his own thing in a vacuum too. Whoever designed this clearly has good ideas to share, but they really needed to put this through testing a bit more. It just feels rushed, and as a result, it ends up as a piece of shit. Seriously, if you want a good Scorponok, just get the Beast Wars reissue. It's better in every single way, aside from the lack of a thigh swivel. But honestly, I'll take it over this piece of shit. New Age, what the f*** happens to you? Throughout your release lineup, there hasn't been a single stumble. Until now. Where did things go so wrong? New Age transformations are known for being effortless, where everything folds together in infinitely clever ways. Straxus bucks this trend with a transformation frustrating enough to give Magic Square a run for their money. The alt mode is a joke, which is absurd considering Hasbro managed to get it spot on just a few months prior. Hell, Dr. Wu outdid them at a quarter of the price and a third of the size. And sure, the robot mode looks fine, but the paint is horrendous. This stuff chips like a motherfucker. Hell, I could paint something more durably than this. The figure really stings me, not just because of how bad it is, but because this is one of the few times I bought something because of character affinity. I usually just buy whatever looks cool, completionism aside, but Straxus has always been a character I've been fond of. I loved the old Generations toy, and I remember reading about his exploits in the Marvel UK comics at the library as a kid, even if I cannot recall any of the stories now as an adult. I wanted this figure so bad, and New Age let me down with this shit. It had enraged to the point where I was starting to question if the company was pivoting to the same practices that made me wary of Magic Square. Fortunately, it doesn't seem like that, but I'm still mad. Iron Factory needs to do a Straxus from their Galvatron next, because I need to wash the foul taste from this from my mouth, and my soul for that matter.
Number 7!
This figure sucks. I've talked about it at length in last year's Legendary Marathon. What else do I need to say? The colors are nice, but the concept and execution stink. This whole idea was bad from the start, and I'm glad Legends are back properly now. I have literally nothing else to say about this piece of garbage. Moving on.
Number 6!
Christmas this year wasn't that great. Between family drama surrounding COVID protocol, my damn father trying to gaslight my other family members into thinking I'm a psychopath, stress from the holiday period with abuse at work, and the exhaustion of putting out 29 videos back to back, I was feeling pretty shit on Christmas Eve. I saw this thing on the shelf and thought it would be a good chuckle. And you know what? It was. Sometimes you just need to laugh at how bad something is to feel better. Like popping on Plan 9 from outer space after an anxiety attack. I'm grateful of this figure, but it's still a piece of shit. Everything you've heard about this mold is true. The alt mode looks like a bar of soap. The transformation is a fiddly nightmare. The plastic feels cheap and hollow. The parts forming is lazy as f***. Even the paint is applied super messily. So glad we're getting a new Elita 1 this year or the next, so we can forget this ever existed, along with the show that inspired it. Elita 1 has endured far too much disrespect over the years. She doesn't deserve figures like this. But hey, sometimes a release this bad is just what you need to brighten your day. This figure deserves this spot on the list, but I can't say I'm not grateful for it.
Number 5!
Curse my obsessive completionism! Why did I have to include minicons on the list? Why must I torture myself such? Minicon combiners have always been a bit naff, but this has to be by far the worst one I've come across. The alt modes are a joke, with only one actually being cohesive. Highwire is especially awful. This thing barely holds together. The robot modes, okay, these are actually pretty funny. They're sort of so bad they're good, so I can give them a pass. Especially Southern Rockhopper Grindor over here is an absolute hoot. The combined mode can go f*** itself though. How do they take a step down from the Armada version? How is that even possible? Oh, right, Energon. That's right. I know the combining minicons aren't the best quality-wise, but these are especially stupid. Oh well, at least that's another tick off the list. Thankfully, I don't need to worry about hunting down any of the redecos. Fortunately, I'm not about that.
Number 4!
As part of my back collecting this year, I managed to pick up most of the Magic Square figures I was missing. Out of all of those, none were as bad as Blue Streak. Seriously, talk about the antithesis of the New Age version. The transformation is frustrating as f***. I'm not sure if it's better or worse than Megatron, but it's definitely one I dread doing, and it's not even that complicated. But that's not the worst part, oh no! Instead of going for the typical Magic Square plastic, they've instead attempted a gloss finish. And it's horrible! It looks like the plastic has melted. It's even worse in person than it is on camera. It also feels really cheap, cheaper than most Magic Square releases. If I were to identify a low point for the company, this would easily be it. I'm inclined to say on the whole that it's worse than Ragnar, because at least that had a pretty stellar road robot mode. This just doesn't, thanks to the plastic choices. I'm so glad they've since upped their game. Menasor was amazing, and I keep hearing amazing things about their Percy, Soundwave, and Shockwave. Even if all three of those turn out to be trash, I can't imagine they'll be as bad as this piece of garbage.
Number 3!
It's no secret that the pettiest third-party company on the planet is Zeta. Any chance they get to take a stab at Toy World, they'll take it. This includes re-releasing all of the old designs they worked on whilst under Toy World's distribution. Yes, even the awful ones like Avilastar. Doesn't matter how bad they were, they're going to make as much money as possible at Toy World's expense. Now, I never would have gotten any of these normally. I had my fill with the first release of Avilastar, and whilst I'll always have a fondness for it as one of my first ever third-party purchases, yeah, it's a piece of shit. That said, a mate of mine was basically unable to sell this after God knows how many months of trying, and he finally gave up and just handed it over to me free of charge. I'm sorry to look a gift horse in the mouth, but I can perfectly see why he gave it up. This figure is bad in so many ways, it's mesmerizing. The rubber mode design is flat out fugly with clashing aesthetics and an extreme case of third-party face. You've got massive clown shoes and even more obnoxious clown hands that give New Age Straxus a run for its money. The color scheme is painful on the eyes, swapping out the tasteful pink and white for an entirely metallic color scheme. This looks like something from a kid's coloring book, not a proper Transformers figure. It's atrocious. The chest loves to fall apart mid-transformation, and said transformation is truly abysmal. I haven't come across an RC transformation this bad since... Actually, no, I flat out haven't. And the alt mode. This might just be the worst masterpiece alt mode I've ever seen. This is flat out unfinished. This wouldn't even be acceptable on a Legends figure. You literally have the entire exposed arse of the robot mode at the back here. Not even Big Firebird and IC was this blatant, and it was at least trying to be sexy. Oh, and to add piss-flavored icing on top of the manure cake, the back wheels love to fold back in, and even when they remain fully extended, she can't roll for shit. This is abysmal. Maybe some slack could have been given when this figure released, as I believe it was the first ever Masterpiece RC on the market. Not the first third-party version, as I Gear and Impossible Toys had attempts out long before, but probably the first 3 PMP. These days, however, with a color scheme this hideous, no excuse. Zeta had no reason to trudge up such horrible memories. This is seriously low, even for them. Honestly, even if you're offered this piece of shit for free like I was, don't accept it. You know, fun fact, I was actually going to cover this figure for Halloween. It was so bad that I thought it was a perfect candidate. That was until...
Number 2!
Leia may have been bad in execution, but Quintesson Judge is just bad on every level. Instead of committing to one specific idea and doing it well, it fudges its way through the assignment and does nothing right. And I know people will tell me, oh, it's accurate to the source material. Bitch, do it look like I give a f***? It still fails as a toy, and because of that, it cannot be recommended. This toy is essentially the plastic form of that one scene from Doctor Strange. The one where he goes, "You lack imagination." Hashtag could have done better, but because of the weird design, they chose not to. They absolutely could have done this properly. This is the trilogy that gave us masterworks like Cyclonus and Spinister. Figures that push the boundaries of what's possible with engineering. And you're telling me that this space egg couldn't turn into a rocket or some shit? Man, I'm actually getting angry writing this part of the script. I'm actually pointing my finger to the wall in anger. Why? I don't even own it anymore. I don't buy it. This is another figure that I've since gotten rid of. And you know what? Good riddance. So, that leaves us with the dishonorable mentions, right? There's really only a couple this time, because this list pretty concisely covers every truly bad figure I got this year. If I'd gotten any less, this list would have only been a top 15 or top 10. That aside, Starscream wasn't the only QC kerfuffle I ran into this year. When I first purchased Studio Series Grindor, it was a shit show. The thing couldn't stand, and the alt mode refused to stay tabbed together. The only reason he's not on the list proper, however, is that the store I bought it from actually sent me a replacement free of charge. This one actually works damn well, so I don't feel it's fair to put it on the list properly. Still, my first copy definitely deserves a dishonorable mention. And secondly, I have to put Maverick on this list in some capacity. This was actually a figure I purchased in 2020, but I never gave it the time of day until I planned on reviewing him and selling him off. It was only then that I discovered how awful he is. Had I paid more attention, he definitely would have been on the 2020 list. And pretty low down, and had I gotten him this year, he would have been pretty low too, but alas. He doesn't quite count, but I still need to flip the bird at him in some capacity. That being said, no figure deserves middle fingers more than the number 1 spot. What a joke. What a joke. I have not been furious at a figure like this in years. This is the culmination of everything wrong with Takara Masterpiece. The current designers have no idea what they're doing, and given the Japanese audience is primarily display-oriented, nobody is going to call them out on such in a meaningful way. We have no say in this matter. Masterpiece has gone to absolute shit. And aside from the Raiden project, which uses the old designers, it will continue to stay in this hellhole for the foreseeable future. And you wonder why I prefer mainline and Legends. This is the reason why. Now, technically speaking, this figure isn't the worst of the bunch on a quality level. Zeta RC is much more of a shit show, and Quintesson Judge is more of a farce in concept. Starscream, however, infuriates. His design, his stability, his paintwork, his engineering, his bloated accessory count, his very existence, it pisses me off. This is a personal list, cataloguing my collecting journey in 2021, and no figure had a bigger impact on me than MP52. Even though I'm reusing shots from the original review so I don't have to torture myself transforming and posing the thing, I'm still frustrated scripting and editing this portion. It's almost a Pavlovian response, and it's all thanks to what this figure does. As the years go by, I am certain this will be remembered as one of the worst Masterpiece figures ever released. If the line ever does pivot back to the old style and or fixes its engineering, this period will likely be written off as a dark age. But at present, its fans are caught in a feedback loop of hype and regret. I saw a friend try to transform MP44 back into truck mode for sale for 20 minutes, and he was in literal tears by the end of it. When a line's engineering is so far gone that that's the end result, mate, you done f***ed it up. I still find it funny that I had almost exactly 21 shitty Transformers to list this year. Going into 2022, this probably won't be the case. My financial position is changing a bit, and given the upcoming move, I probably won't be buying as much. I even had to cancel my pre-order on MMC G2 Bruticus because I simply won't have the money or space. It's either that or like 10 Legends figures, and I know what I'm picking. One day, my love, one day. But whatever the future holds, I sincerely hope it isn't as bad as MP52. Although I did think the same about Thunder Leader last year, and this franchise still finds new and clever ways to frustrate and disappoint. I'm sure some figures will blindside me in a way I could never have imagined, and I'm certainly not looking forward to it. But in the meantime, I suppose I should get to work on the best list. Until then, as always, fandom public consciousness is a conversation, so drop your worst figures of the year down below. And as always, remember, there's a context for everything. Till next time.